Imagine spending months building an application. You launch it, customers start signing up, everything looks perfect. Then one morning you discover hackers have stolen your customer database. No advanced malware. No Hollywood-style hacking. Just one simple security mistake. The truth is that most web application attacks exploit a small number of common vulnerabilities. That's why OWASP created the Top 10, a list every developer should know. In this video, I'll explain all 10 vulnerabilities in simple language with real-world examples, so you understand not just what they are, but how they actually happen. Let's get started. Before we jump into the list, let's quickly understand what OWASP is. OWASP is a non-profit organization that publishes the Top 10, the industry's most recognized list of web application security risks. If you're building or testing applications, this is one list you simply can't ignore. Broken access control. Broken access control happens when an application doesn't properly verify what a user is allowed to access. Imagine living in an apartment where your key opens every flat in the building. That's exactly what this vulnerability looks like. Suppose you're logged into your banking account and visit bank.com account 12345. You change the number to bank.com account 12346. If you can now see another customer's account, the application failed to check your permissions. This is a common example called Insecure Direct Object Reference, or IDOR. Attackers can use this to view confidential information, modify records, or even delete someone else's data. Always perform authorization checks on the server. Never trust the client. Remember this: authentication tells you who the user is. Authorization decides what they can access. 2. Cryptographic failures. Cryptographic failures occur when sensitive data isn't properly protected. Imagine sending your bank details on a postcard instead of inside a sealed envelope. Anyone handling that postcard can read it. The same thing happens when applications store passwords in plain text, use weak encryption, or send sensitive information over HTTP instead of HTTPS. If attackers gain access to the database or intercept network traffic, they can immediately read confidential information. Use HTTPS everywhere, encrypt sensitive data, and never store passwords directly. Always hash passwords using strong algorithms like Argon2 or bcrypt. Encryption isn't just about compliance. It's your last line of defense when everything else fails. 3. Injection. Injection happens when an application treats user input as part of a command instead of ordinary data. The most common example is SQL injection. Imagine a login page that directly places whatever the user types into a database query. Instead of entering a username, an attacker enters malicious SQL code. The database executes the attacker's command and may return every record, bypass authentication, or even delete data. Injection isn't limited to SQL. It can also affect operating system commands, LDAP queries, and NoSQL databases. The best defense is simple. Use parameterized queries, validate input, and never build commands by concatenating user input. 4. Insecure design. Sometimes the code is correct, but the design itself is insecure. Imagine building a house without installing locks on the doors. Even perfect construction won't keep intruders out. For example, a password reset feature that only asks for an email address without verifying the user's identity is insecure by design. The application behaves exactly as intended, but the design makes it easy to abuse. Security should begin during planning, not after development. A secure design prevents vulnerabilities before they're written into the code. 5. Security misconfiguration. Not every attack exploits a coding bug. Sometimes developers simply leave the door open. Examples include default passwords, debug mode enabled in production, publicly accessible cloud storage, or detailed error messages that reveal sensitive information. Attackers constantly scan the internet looking for these mistakes because they're easy to exploit. Review your configurations regularly, disable unnecessary features, and never deploy production systems with default settings. A secure application can still become vulnerable if it's configured incorrectly. 6. Vulnerable and outdated components. Modern applications rely heavily on open-source libraries and third-party packages. If one of those components contains a known vulnerability, your application inherits that risk. A famous example is Log4Shell, where millions of applications became vulnerable because they used an outdated version of Log4j. Many organizations didn't even realize they were using it. Keep your dependencies updated, monitor security advisories, and use software composition analysis tools to identify vulnerable components before attackers do. Your application is only as secure as the libraries it depends on. 7. Identification and authentication failures. Authentication proves who the user is. If authentication is weak, attackers can pretend to be legitimate users. Common examples include weak passwords, missing multi-factor authentication, predictable session IDs, or insecure password reset mechanisms. Credential stuffing attacks take advantage of users reusing passwords across multiple websites. Strong passwords, MFA, secure session management, and proper password storage significantly reduce this risk. Your login page is often the first target attackers look at. 8. Software and data integrity failures. Applications frequently download updates, plugins, and third-party packages. If those files aren't verified, attackers can inject malicious code into trusted software. This is known as a supply chain attack. Instead of attacking your application directly, attackers compromise something your application already trusts. Protect your CI/CD pipeline. Verify software integrity, digitally sign releases, and only install trusted dependencies. Trust should always be verified, not assumed. 9. Security logging and monitoring. Failures. Imagine your office has security cameras that never record anything. If someone breaks in, you'll never know what happened. Applications work the same way. Without proper logging and monitoring, attackers can remain inside your systems for weeks or even months without being detected. Log important security events, monitor suspicious activity, and configure alerts so your security team can respond quickly. Detecting an attack early can prevent a small incident from becoming a major breach. 10. Server-side request forgery, SRF. SSRF happens when attackers trick your server into making requests on their behalf. Imagine convincing a trusted employee to enter a restricted room and bring back confidential documents. The attacker never enters the room but still gets the information. In SSRF, attackers provide a malicious URL, and the server unknowingly accesses internal systems or cloud metadata that should never be exposed. Validate all user-supplied URLs, restrict outbound requests, and block access to internal resources whenever possible. In cloud environments, SSRF can expose highly sensitive infrastructure information. Summary. Let's quickly recap. Broken access control. Lets users access resources they shouldn't. Cryptographic failures expose sensitive data. Injection executes malicious commands. Insecure design creates security problems before coding even begins. Security misconfiguration leaves applications unnecessarily exposed. Vulnerable components introduce risks through outdated libraries. Authentication. Failures allow attackers to impersonate users. Software and data integrity. Failures compromise trusted software and updates. Logging and monitoring failures delay the detection of attacks. And SSRF tricks servers into accessing resources attackers can't reach directly. If you understand these 10 risks, you're already ahead of many developers when it comes to building secure applications. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Security Masterclass.